Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining Omnex's webinar on conducting IATF 16949 audits with ASPICE and Functional Safety. With the automotive industry increasingly moving away from internal combustion engines and more towards electric and autonomous vehicles, the hardware-software integration within vehicles is becoming more and more complex, which is why methodologies like ASPICE and Functional Safety and ISO 26262 and SOTIF are so important. This webinar will introduce the expectations for conducting integrated IATF audits along with ASPICE and functional safety. And here to present this topic is Chad Kymal, Omnex CTO and an ASPICE principal assessor, along with Roy Gray, a project lead at Omnex and an ASPICE provisional assessor. Without further ado, take it away.
Let's turn it on here. So let me start over. Thank you very much, Andrew. And so very happy to be here with you guys. And we'll share with you our thoughts in conducting IATF 16949 audits with ASPICE and functional safety. The training course we have a training course that we have done for third-party auditors is for IACBA, which is an association of all the, I don't know, yeah, it is US third-party IATF 16949 auditors approached us, I think now, I guess it was last year, Roy?
Yes.
And we have been doing this course a number of times. Sorry, Roy?
Yes, I was agreeing with you.
Maybe the year before.
Chad. Last year.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Roy. So Roy and I have been doing this class, and we're happy to share this webinar. And if you have IATF 169, so for those of you, we have new people joining us for webinars regularly. For those of you who are new to us, we are actually a 38-year-old organization headquartered in Ann Arbor, Michigan, with offices worldwide. Really, what we are very proud of is having, written and participating in writing standards that we teach. We have global offices worldwide here, global worldwide. And here are our target markets. You can see we especially have specified electric vehicles and autonomous vehicles separately from automotive, only to distinguish the standards and the mechanical combustion engine versus electric autonomous engine, and all the different systems that have to be used between. All right. This is what we do. We do everything from a gap analysis, diagnostic, to training, and then coaching and implementation. We do functional safety assessments, ASPICE assessments. We also have engineers who can help you with your functional safety design, or functional safety manager, or ASPICE QA, and so on. We also have the Omnex, Safe, Secure, Sustain, that does product certifications. It's a registrar that is applied for with ANAB. A little bit about Roy and I. By the way, Roy does lots and lots and lots of audits. I think you may have come across him maybe. How many years with Omnex, Roy?
Going on 8 years.
And then another 10, 15 years where he's been doing various things with automotive, in automotive companies. And I have been now actually, though it says 20 years, I've been in the automotive industry now for about 40 years. Time flies. And I won't repeat, what you already have about me. but I did start with General Motors many, many years ago. All right, so we're going to share with you how to conduct IATF audits with ASPICE and Functional Safety. And in the process, I hope we make you think about things. So this is the seminar agenda. Before I start a section with Roy here, I will actually highlight it for you so you're aware on what we're discussing. So the first part is the question. Does IATF 16949 have requirements for embedded software? What do we say, folks? I wish this could be a little bit more interactive. I know it's just the way it is, but the answer is, of course. In fact, in the scope of IATF 16949 itself, it talks about, software and, one second here. And do you see this? Including products with embedded software. So embedded software is part of the IATF 16949 scope. I'm not going to share. This webinar is not about everything. So I want to focus on the items that we're talking about. And then when you go inside the standard, there are two very important clauses, that talks about embedded software. First, it says, when you're doing product development, you need to use a software development assessment methodology must be used. So why did we say examples? We added this. Examples include automotive SPICE and CMMI. Really, it comes from the standard itself. The IATF 16949, in its vocabulary section, says when they say software process assessment, they mean CMMI and ASPICE. So hence, really two choices that we have. And then we went on to say the only real choice is automotive SPICE. Folks, it was not at all clear that's the way things were going to shake out. We had a very good idea that's the way it's going to shake out. But why is automotive SPICE really the only choice? Roy? Thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, really the only choice is because at least the Detroit 3 are within their CSRs are stating to use ASPICE rather than CMMI.
Yes. And the European OEMs, I would say especially the German OEMs, had already picked automotive SPICE. And then because of that, since the German counterparts already picked ASPICE, many of the OEMs also started going ASPICE. And of course, if you are a supplier, you really did not have any choice. All right. I want you, as IATF 16949 assessors, to know ASPICE is very much embedded. So let's see here. I always have the Zoom sort of hides what I want to talk about. So let me close that. So the organization to require the suppliers of automotive product related software or automotive products with embedded software to implement and maintain a process for software quality assurance. And furthermore, if you're doing IATF, you need to assess the supplier's software development process, okay? So really, you need to be assessing your suppliers for ASPICE, right? That's what it's saying. I don't know if those of you who are attending this webinar know ASPICE is required by IATF and it's required for your supply base. There are 4 additional requirements which I'm not going to cover due to time constraints, okay? It'll be a bit of, we have other fish to fry. So the first part was to say, look, ASPICE is a requirement in IATF 16949. You need it, and your suppliers need it if you have embedded software, that is. Next, the question is functional safety. Is functional safety a requirement in IATF 16949? We'll just go here, starting with the definition of product safety. And it says standards relating to design and manufacturing products to ensure they do not represent harm or hazards to the customer. Really, it is the definition of functional safety. So you could very well say functional safety is also in the scope of IATF 16949. And then in ISO 26262, we have this ASILs, okay? ASILs are nothing more than special characteristics as we define it in the automotive industry. So keep that in mind in today's webinar. In the class, we included cybersecurity, but in today's webinar, to keep it easier for all of us, even though I get quite hairy, to keep it easier, I want to keep it at just related products and manufacturing process, and then they go on, okay? So you can take this as also, well, 26262. Once you know 26262 is a part of the IATF 16949 through product safety, then you can also, all right, I will go into that section after the set of questions we have to ask. By the way, we build this webinar as IATF 16949 for auditors of IATF 16949 that also have functional safety in ASPICE. So are you an IATF 16949 auditor or implementer? Yes or no? How familiar are you with ASPICE? 5 to 1. 5 means much more, that you are very familiar to very little familiar. I would like to know that. So Mike Miller, could you run this, please? And then how familiar are you with functional safety? Okay. I'll just give you just a couple of minutes here. I won't even give you a couple of minutes. I'll give you a minute or two so we can continue. I'll just give you feedback in terms of, I'll wait for another 10 or 15 seconds, Mike, and then we will close. All right, let's close the poll, sir. All right, so about 60% of you are IATF implementers or auditors, okay? Maybe the other 40% is more in ASPICE or functional safety. All right, so you're very familiar with ASPICE. All right, across the board, it's a spectrum across the board, which means then and I'll say you're a lot more familiar with functional safety than you are with in terms of, you know, what we should do. Guys, Roy, are you finding difficulty in terms of the sound? Is it freezing?
Yes, it is.
We'll just, maybe Mike Miller can come in and call in for me. Okay, Mike? Folks, I really apologize. one of the few times I'm doing it from in the office. And lo and behold, a super duper internet is worse in the office than at my home. All right. So now we're segueing into the audit itself. We'll do scope and we'll talk about process maps. All right. 4.4 is process maps. I'll explain that to you. And scope, think of it as the scope of your quality manual. And this is what we in IACPA, actually, not just Omnex, we said in the scope of the QMS needs to include ASPICE and functional safety if these are requirements of your customer, okay? And we actually gave an example of a design and manufacture of battery assemblies for the automotive industry. And, we went through the manufacturing, with the manufacturing site and the support locations, engineering, purchasing. And then in it, not only did we talk about the CSRs, but we also said it includes ASPICE PAM 3.1. Folks, PAM, this is the revision level of the ASPICE document has changed, but for today's webinar, we'll stick to 3.1 instead of 4.0. All right. And in ASPICE, you can pick 32 processes or a VDA scope. When you say VDA scope, I know exactly it means 16 processes and what those processes are. Okay. There's also a Volkswagen scope, which is more of an extended scope. And so we know, looking at this, here's a company that has IATF 16949. We can tell exactly. Or is it pretty much Aptiv and Borg Warner? Is there a Delphi? All right. And then we also have so they also have functional safety, ASPICE, and IATF 16949. Just a FYI, organizations don't need to be at a level 3. This is what the automotive industry would like. And let's assume for this webinar that the organization I'm talking about integrating processes is at an ASPICE level 3. So when you have ASPICE level 3, you've gone beyond just project specific and you have organizational documents that are standardized. And number 2, of course, you can tailor it. Okay, you can take those standard documents and you can tailor it for your project. That's the rules of ASPICE. Plan for functional safety, all right? And all the work products. So you need to have, these, as they say, in part 2 itself, but it's the general overall requirements of functional safety that you have to institute, execute, and maintain organization-specific rules and processes. So, we had other members of Omnex in the functional safety writing committee in the 2018 rewrite. I am myself getting quite involved. I'm hoping we can clean up some of this language. Why say organizational specific rules? Come on. In ISO, we have no idea what rules mean. So I'm hoping, I was the US expert for documented information as part of the TC 176, and it's ISO. Good. You got me there. I do believe it's 13,010, but suddenly my brain is warped. Which is overall general requirements. And we also have it in the support processes, part 8, as a whole section on document management. And you know, I do appreciate 26262 because it was written by people who are not that familiar with, you know, sort of QMS, right? So you can see documents must be available where needed, which we say that too, need to be precise, concise, structured. You can see a lot of German, you know, thinking in these. Slowly, it's becoming a global standard, but very much authored from Europe when it first came out in 2011. All right. So let's move on. So where are we? All we're saying so far is the scope needs to include the whatever standards that you're doing for product development or in manufacturing, because people in 26262, you know, always forget it. In the end of the day, the safety requirements need to hit the plant floor, okay, in part 7 of the standard. ASPICE, of course, sort of only focuses on system and software and doesn't even get to anywhere on special characteristics. So in functional safety, there's a document management plan. You know, you should show how documents are available for each phase of the life cycle, of the safety life cycle, and then some documentation guideline requirements. So you will see these kind of guideline requirements both in ASPICE and functional safety, where they want you to have some, so think of it as level 3s in terms of filling things out. You know, it harkens back to maybe very old ISO 9001 thinking. All right. So we're talking about all these processes and documentations to talk about what kind of expectations should we have for a process map. All right. This is coming, of course, this is language taken from IATF and then, of course, modified. The process map needs to include key processes. That's what it says in IATF 16949, including processes required by ASPICE and functional safety. Why? Because it's in your scope and it's also assumptions in IATF 16949 scope. So if they're required by the customer, integrated, please. And the process sequence and interaction needs to be evident. The map needs to show how the site and remote locations interact. But this is older language, but and hopefully this is the way you're auditing a process map today. All right. It's my, you know, I wrote several books on auditing. I wrote a whole section in one of my books on how to audit a process map, which I will not do today to save you guys. So is this right? Let's take a look at this and see if we agree with it. Product development, it says only IATF 16949. We definitely know that's wrong, right? Product development, functional safety definitely impacts product development. So product development needs to be both, it needs to be a yellow. Look at the legend here, okay? IATF 16949 and 26262. So product development needs to be yellow. Now that we have said that, let's go look at contract review. Maybe we don't call it contract review here. Maybe for those of you holdouts from 1986 ISO 9001, recall contract review, or I'll say QS 9000 in 1995. And I think in IATF 16949 2002 also had contract review. But my brain is not as nimble as it used to be. I've got so many more standards in my head now. So contract review is that exchange of requirements from the customer to our organization, does that need to be yellow or can it stay blue? Unfortunately, Roy, there's only you and me to talk to each other. And I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, it should be yellow because in functional safety, we got the DIA.
Yes. Thank you so much, Roy. That's a support process, distributed interface agreement sitting between the customer and the supplier. In this case, we are the supplier. So it happens, you can think of it as being included in contract review. That is where you're asking the customer, hey, give me your, part 3 requirements. What are your ASILs? What is your safety goals? By the way, nobody is giving that kind of information. Some are not. And so that I can then design it inside my organization, okay? And so you can see right here, there are many processes that need to be yellow, but it's a good exercise if I was teaching it in a class, which we use it as a discussion point in saying process maps inside organizations that have IATF, ASPICE, and 26262 need to have an integrated process map. It would be good. Mr. Dave Watkins is listening. He would have been a good person to include in a discussion here, Roy. All
yes.
right. Because he always has an opinion, and it's nice to have opinions when you are doing a webinar, especially. But hopefully, we are making you think a lot. Okay. Now, as I taught this course along with Roy for ICBA and all the different third-party auditors, I ventured in this manner. What are the expectations in IATF for the auditee and auditor? It's not ASPICE, auditor of ASPICE, but auditee and auditor for an ASPICE system inside inside the management system. I'm surely confused you with that statement, but just listen to me if you can. So this is, by the way, the 16 processes of ASPICE. And everything there with a red outline from MAN 3. Some of the most important processes are MAN 3, project management, and SUP 1 QA. If you don't know, SUP 1 is auditing, all right? It's project related auditing, but there's many differences between QA and, let's say, since I don't teach IATF as much as I used to, it's clause what, Roy? 9.2, is it?
9.2.
Internal auditing?
Yep, 9.2.
Okay, great. So, it's similar, but different. And what, if any, how can you integrate it? Yes, there's parts of QA you can integrate with IATF auditing, so you don't have to repeat it twice, okay? All right, 4 support processes and ACQ4, which is supplier monitoring. If I was looking for something supplier related, where would I go to in IATF 16949?
8.4.
8.4, okay, beautiful. There's a man who knows his IATF inside out. So these 16 processes are called VDA scope. And since when VDA took over ASPICE, it used to be called a HIS scope. When VDA took it over, they called it a VDA scope. Very smart. It's, of course, marketing. So 9 out of these 16 processes integrate with IATF 16949. So 9 of these processes have either complete duplicates or there is in the Venn diagram, people. All right.
Chad, can you
So-
repeat all of that? You froze up on us.
Oh, I am so sorry. Thank you. You should tell me that. Am I still freezing up?
From time to time, you are.
Oh, my Lord. So I was just saying that they're not exact duplicates, just like SUP 1. SUP 1, by the way, I mean, just off the top of my head, SUP 1, you have to do a work products review. All right. You have to check each work product after a peer review has been done. It's not a requirement of it's not a requirement of IATF. Auditing processes definitely there's overlap between IATF 16949. All right. And so on. And problem resolution definitely overlaps with corrective action in IATF 16949.
10.2.2.
Beautiful. So in that manner, if you put two processes out there and you don't tell them when to use it, or it's a not. 16949 is essentially the same as system in ASPICE. Remember these processes? These are all system processes, okay? So if I was doing system design, which is product design, all these processes apply to me. So does MAN 3. So does all these support processes, also apply to me, okay? All right. You know what I might do? I might turn off my video. Let me turn off my video and come back.
That.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't think of it earlier. So, what are we trying to say here? Let's go back here. So that's what we mean here, that the process owners need to understand that ASPICE, we were told ASPICE is only for software, forgetting that the system design is there too. All the support processes there also that work on both the system and the software. If the processes are not integrated, meaning you could write one process for QA and IATF 16949, if you want to keep it separate, you can, but you need to say when does one start and when does the other, begin. The scope of each process and the coexistence must be thought to clearly. Next. So this is pretty, a lot. So let me think here what to talk to you about. Both are very similar in both functional safety and ASPICE. I'll say this, 8.3 product design, in terms of design input, design output, verification, validation, it's maybe the overall process, the detail. I'll time to show you my picture. The detail of how functional safety design is done, it needs to be done in the confines of overall 8.3 product design. But that detail of a functional safety design is done is and then, of course, I said this before, it'll be a repeat, SIS process development, the system process development, and common processes such as MAN 3. Is that project management in IATF? Damn right. Does it work on the software system? Damn right. Does it work on the software? I think it does. All right. Though you could say, hey, for software, just look at MAN 3 project management, but the system is governed both by IATF and by MAN 3. All right. If not, define it. But so is SUP 1, SUP 9, problem resolution, sub 10 change request management, and supplier monitoring are common processes, and we need to define how both of them work together. All right. I have one more, again, a very meaty slide that I want to give you a break on without trying to explain everything to you. These are my expectations when I do, IATF 16949 in a ACE. Going to the subsystem, and from the subsystem, maybe to the hardware and software, okay?
Chad, I hate to say this, but you froze again.
I can also tell, so maybe I will catch myself. So I was just saying, Roy, that the V model needs to be shown in the APQP process. So, I was very, very happy to see the new APQP and control plan. But I was a little disappointed that they hadn't tackled the V model in it, all right? And I hope it's a little harder for us to influence IATF 16949, though many of us were very involved with IATF along the lines. But we will do our best to do that. Should the V model be integrated into the APQP? Absolutely. Into a new product development process, you need to have the V model. All right, let me just say here, the flow down of functions requirements is not just in ASPICE, it needs to be brought into the IATF, and it can be brought in near and dear to my heart, because we can clearly see how things should be, right? So this is what we need to have when we design these two things. They cannot be islands unto themselves. They have to be integrated. All right, let me go ahead and turn the video off again. This is the last part of this webinar, which is the expectations of IATF with functional safety. So let's take a look at this here. First, let me introduce these 12 parts of ISO 26262. Part 1 is normative. It's not audited, but the vocabulary, of course, comes from Part 1. Starting with Part 2, all the way to Part 9 is normative if it applies. You can see here, Part 10 is a guideline. Part 11 is semiconductors. So I always have said, I don't know if I've color-coded it, this one, Part 2, and I like to usually go Part 2 and Part 8. Part 2 and Part 8 need to integrate with your QMS. Part 3, Part 4, Part 5, Part 6 have to integrate with your product design. And then Part 7, of course, is manufacturing. All right. So what are my thoughts here for all of you? Is that when I go to these inside organizations, I see many organizations think of ISO 26262 functional safety as a design standard. They forget that, there is manufacturing in it. Manufacturing is so this is one of the things I'm hoping in the new rewrite, we can make sure even in the confirmation reviews in Part 2, we can include some manufacturing documents. Absolutely important that in the end of the day, when you go into their control plan, you see the ASIL requirements, and they're traceable all the way back to a safety goal. All right. You know, I've audited the standard many, many times, and very fond of it. So this is the only slide I put in among all the different parts, just to say, you see this organizational specific rules and processes I spoke about? Think of that as part of the documented management system. Not so much a 4.4, but Roy, is it 7.5?
7.5 for documented information.
Okay. Then we have communications channels. You know, this is just the communication interfaces between functional safety and other disciplines. Roy, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say communication channels would fall under 7.4 and 8.2 of IATF.
Process that hits you across the face, you would never know. It means, oh, it's me. Roy, can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
So was I blank for a long time?
Yes, you were.
I thought it was you, but it's me. So I was just talking about this word safety anomaly resolution process. What a mouthful. I said, if it hit you on the face, you would not know it's corrective action. All right. So, but now when you understand it's safety anomalies, now you suddenly say, okay, a resolution process, corrective action. But just think that the people who wrote it didn't know there's an overall corrective action process present. All right, your competence management, roles and responsibilities, and so on. All right. So the biggest problem here is that there's a silo in the organization creating all of these without recognizing there's a management system out there already. Part 8, of course, is all the support processes. Where else do we have support processes, Roy? Not just IATF, in ASPICE, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And there's change management in IATF, change management in ASPICE, change management in 26262. Okay. So here is that DIA with distributed interface agreement that goes very well with clause 8.4.
Yes.
Expectations again, that we integrate the V model, not only for ASPICE, we integrate it also functional safety. Of course, you can keep the functional safety design separate from the new product development, but at least the phases have to line up. You should make sure that the safety lifecycle phases and the project review phases, when you're doing the top management gate reviews, that you present the evidence from both ASPICE and functional safety into the same gate reviews. You can do much more detailed meetings in the ASPICE gate review and the functional safety gate review, but you can report it up to top management. All right. Most importantly, there are common processes, and you need to integrate these same common processes. Again, my way of thinking, if you have a common process and it doesn't say how it works together, it is a non-conformance, folks, because it's confusing the heck out of everyone. Again, lots of stuff here. I'll just maybe touch on one of them here. Maybe I'll take part 7. Part 7 has PFMEAs, control plans, inspection sheets, process capability, okay? And ISO 26260, 26262 calls for the safety anomaly process in manufacturing. So make sure you align the two. And when we say align, it can be identical, or you can make sure you call out the ASILs in your PFMEAs in your control plans, all right? So how do you come up with ASILs in manufacturing? You got to understand that there's functions have requirements, requirements have characteristics. If you don't have that overall picture of how characteristics are made, are developed, you can control things on the shop floor, not just for ASPICE, also for your special characteristics. All right. Again, I'll just talk about some of the things I already spoke about. The V model needs to be integrated into the NPD process. There's a flow down of functional requirements, functions and requirements, same as your DFMEA in AIG VDA DFMEA, right? And so not only do we recognize it, our software called Aqua Pro recognizes it and links everything together, okay? And let me just jump here. So DFMEAs and DVPNRs, what are DVPNRs? Testing. It's the part of testing that's in SIS 4 and SIS 5, okay? And it can be integrated or done separately. You can have them separate. You can have the functional safety separately, but they need to be worked together, right? Or you can integrate it into the same document. How sad is it if the testing is not integrated and you're duplicating testing? All right. So that brings me to the very end here. I thought I had a few more slides, but just about our training and things like that, okay? So we have a number of different training courses that we showed in the very beginning. And as we said, we're happy to do gap analysis and help people do implementations and such. With that, Roy, let's take some of the questions that we have.
Okay. First question, what happens if the support site for contract review is a remote supporting location? My company will only be audited on the part of communication flow.
All right, so what if this, okay, my company will only be audited on the part of the communication for whatever support site for guy is remote. So, you know, that's a little bit of a confusing question. You know, I think what she means is that her site, the contract review is done by another site of inside that company, okay?
Yes, yes.
And they'll be only audited on part. Yeah, that's how I'm reading that question. That my company will only be audited on part of the communication flow. You know, I don't want to say what you'll be audited for because I can't tell. All I know is, you know, there should be a contract review process following the spirit of what we're trying to share, okay? So that your process for what happens between the customer and inside your company needs to satisfy not just IATF 16949, but it's also for when you do special characteristics, you should be also asking all the questions for functional safety, all right? And also, there is something called DIA in functional safety. It also needs to be integrated back in your overall contract review. Now, what if this is one of those processes, and hopefully you won't feel, if you're completely doing it separately, but doing a good job of it, it would make sense, but maybe I would write it up as an opportunity for improvement. What do you think, Roy? If they're doing a really good job with the functional safety part of it, and they're doing a very good job with the IATF 16949 part of it,
I would
yeah, go ahead.
I would document it as an OFI and consider integrating the two processes together.
Yes, absolutely. The non-conformances come in. If we look the way you're doing special characteristics, and then we don't see the ASILs coming in at all to any of the paperwork, that might create maybe a start of a non-conformance. Okay, all right. Hopefully, I answered that. This is not exactly the question for this webinar, but I'm happy to answer it. PAM 4.0 is already available. When do you expect OEMs to start requiring it from suppliers? So just to answer that, Caitlin, the PAM 4.0 came out somewhere October, November of last year. We did a whole ASPICE Gate for SPICE event. And many OEMs are asking for it by the end of the year, by the beginning. One large OEM, German OEM, has said the expectation is that they'll be doing PAM 4.0 starting January. Many of the other companies said they are getting ready to do PAM 4.0, but they think the assessments will start middle of next year. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. So generally, from a information viewpoint, looking at the last ASPICE documents come in, usually there's a year before people start asking for it. So the end of this year would be a good time where people will start asking for it. So inside the company, we need to get ready. All right. So there's an update training that we do. And we actually have some very in-depth training courses. And we have all the PAM 4.0 provisional assessor, competent assessor, and so on courses. Right now, please look it up on the website. As I said, I cannot recall if everything is available now. It's coming out in October. All right. Shall I go ahead and read the next one? Or did you have a next one in mind? Go ahead.
Yeah, go on
Right.
with the competencies one. What are the competencies, including background and auditor, that are required to cover IATF, functional safety, cybersecurity?
I have my thoughts on that. Go ahead, Roy. Go ahead.
I was going to say my thoughts on that too.
Yes, please.
Get a good understanding of the standards. Okay. If you're not sure of the requirements, you can always have a technical expert with you when you are performing these audits, especially when you get into doing the new product development. So you can have a ASPICE or a functional safety person with you, and they can help you understand if the requirements are being met.
So I'll say this also, Roy. Roy, we have a 5-day 26262 auditing course. And I would recommend that auditor course because we actually walk through and do assessments and audits of all the different work products. Okay. So that would be very helpful for you. Of course, if you have a large enough crowd, we can come inside and do that same course also. And cybersecurity, we have the same thing for cybersecurity. We have a 5-day course for assessors and auditors for cybersecurity. So I would recommend that. And then also what Roy just mentioned. Okay. Thank you. Roy, shall we just go in order of the questions?
Yes, go in order.
Okay. All right. Can you repeat which section of IATF ASPICE incorporated with ASPICE incorporated IF can we consider? Wow, that was confusing. I think you mean to the very first part. Where does it say? I'm just going to go right up, okay? And I'm just going to go right up. Hopefully you wanted to know where it calls ASPICE, right? I think that's what you mean. So we started, actually, I had some hidden slides I didn't share with you. I'll just go up here. So we started here, okay? From the scope of IATF includes embedded software. That's where we started. Then we went to two main parts of the standard that requires, 8323, write it down, 8323, and then write down 84231, okay? I hope that answers your question on that. All right. So is it true to picture IATF standard as a higher level than ASPICE and FUSA standard that doesn't go into much detail as the other two? I don't want to say anything negative about IATF, but it's a great standard. Just like ISO 9001 is even more general than IATF. IATF says, hey, go north. Don't go anywhere, but go north. In that north, ASPICE and FUSA will say, take a right turn here, take a left turn here, document this, jump here, and so on. So it provides the details of how to do something which is in a broader swath in IATF, okay? Especially in the design side. Is that fair enough, Thurkin? Okay. Okay, where can I find the standard for IATF? We actually sell the standard for IATF 16949. You can email us and we can send you IATF 16949, all right? So very important for those of you who are not getting enough power for ASPICE and functional safety in the organization, and if you think there's IATF has got more power, anyway, every organization is different. You need to know these standards all have the scope, and there's the expectation that your quality manual will have a scope of all three, and that your process map will be an integrated process map. Once you say that, by gosh, you'll all have to work closer together. Can you do an ASPICE assessment retroactively on an already completed project? Yes, we can do that, but you might find many issues with it, but definitely we do things like that, okay? And we can help you fix those things that make sense. All right, folks, that brings us right to the end of the hour. I hope you all got a lot out of this webinar. Let us know, and it always makes us happy. And we're happy to we'll try to do more webinars like this. And thank you for attending the webinar. I'm so sorry we moved into this new office. I should have done my due diligence and tested myself before bravely going forward, okay? And doing this webinar from the office. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day and see you in other webinars or training or other events from Omnex. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you, Roy.
Mm-hmm.